Think you know the 70s? Think again. While blockbusters lit up marquees, some of the decade's most powerful films slipped into obscurity, forgotten gems that didn't play it safe, didn't follow the rules, and absolutely didn't pull their punches. From icy thrillers to raw emotional dramas, these 15 classics still burn with brilliance today. Buckle in, cinephiles, because we're unearthing the best 1970s films you've never seen. The Friends of Eddie Coyle, 1973. Robert Mitchum trades in his Hollywood cool for a weary, worn-out portrait of a low-level Boston gunrunner trying to avoid one last prison stint. Peter Yates, better known for crowd pleasers like Bullitt, directs with gritty realism, painting the criminal underworld not with glamour, but with cold, gray desperation. Mitchum's performance is devastating in its subtlety. His Eddie Coyle shuffles through life with slumped shoulders and dead eyes, a man who knows his fate but still scrambles to avoid it. The supporting cast elevates every scene, Peter Boyle as the duplicitous bartender Dylan, Richard Jordan as the manipulative federal agent Foley, creating a tapestry of moral ambiguity where loyalty is currency and everyone's looking for a better deal. The film's Boston winter setting feels bone-chillingly authentic, with rundown diners, empty parking lots, and hockey arenas serving as backdrops to quiet conversations that determine life and death. This wasn't a hit at the box office and was largely forgotten amid flashier crime flicks like The Godfather and Mean Streets. But its influence lingers in everything from The Sopranos to No Country for Old Men. Quentin Tarantino called it the best crime movie ever made, and modern filmmakers from Denis Villeneuve to Ben Affleck have cited its quiet intensity as a blueprint. Don't expect shootouts, expect slow burns, tough choices, and betrayal in every breath. The final scene, underplayed with devastating restraint, might be the most honest portrayal of a criminal's end ever committed to film. What makes The Friends of Eddie Coyle truly special is how it strips away crime film mythology, presenting instead a world where criminals are just working stiffs, where violence happens without fanfare, and where your friends are the ones who ultimately betray you. It's not just a forgotten classic, it's a masterclass in cinematic realism that most movies still can't match today. The Last Detail, 1973. Jack Nicholson is at his foul-mouthed, electric best in this Hal Ashby-directed odyssey about two Navy men escorting a young sailor to prison. What starts as a simple assignment becomes a journey through America's back roads, bars, and brutalities. Nicholson's Billy Badass Badusky is a tornado of profanity and raw emotion, partnered with Otis Young's more restrained Mule. Together, they're tasked with delivering Randy Quaid's pitiful sailor, Meadows, to the brig for an 8-year sentence over a petty theft. Robert Towne's razor-sharp screenplay sparked controversy with its unprecedented use of profanity. Over 65 F-bombs at a time when most films contain none. And Columbia Pictures fought the MPAA tooth and nail to release it intact. The dialogue crackles with authenticity, capturing military life with unvarnished truth. Nicholson's performance is a masterpiece of charisma and empathy, earning him an Oscar nomination that ultimately lost to Jack Lemmon. The film is structured as a road trip, but it's really an exploration of institutional cruelty and small moments of human dignity. Ashby's direction feels loose and improvisational, but every scene builds toward the film's devastating conclusion. Each stop along the way, a bathroom fight, a whorehouse visit, a counterculture party, reveals more about these men and the limited choices available to them. It grossed modestly and faded behind Nicholson's flashier roles, but time has been kind to The Last Detail. Today it reads like a lost anthem of American post-Vietnam disillusionment, a counterculture classic that uses the military as a microcosm for wider societal constraints. The film's final salute, loaded with rage, resignation, and reluctant duty, encapsulates an entire generation's ambivalence about authority. Film scholars now rank it among Ashby's finest works, alongside Harold and Maude and Being There, appreciating how it balances comedy and tragedy within a deceptively simple narrative. For viewers discovering it today, the film feels startlingly modern in its language, performances, and emotional honesty. Wanda, tysiąc dziewięćset siedemdziesiąt. Barbara Loden's Wanda is a trailblazer in every sense. a film so ahead of its time that audiences and critics simply weren't ready for it. Loden, writer, director, and star, gives us a woman lost in the coal mining backroads of Pennsylvania, drifting through life with a haunting quietness. After abandoning her children and husband, Wanda floats from one degrading situation to another, eventually falling in with a small-time crook planning his next heist. Shot in grainy 16mm with non-actors and real locations, it feels almost like a documentary, a precursor to today's independent cinema aesthetics. Loden, primarily known as an actress and wife of director Elia Kazan, created something revolutionary, a female character with no redemptive arc, no punishment for moral transgressions, and no false epiphanies. Wanda simply exists, making choices both terrible and understandable. At the time, no one knew what to do with it. Critics largely ignored it. Theaters passed. It won the International Critics Prize at Venice but disappeared shortly after. But slowly, over decades, Wanda became a feminist landmark and indie inspiration. The film was rediscovered by scholars in the 1990s, with directors like John Cassavetes praising its uncompromising vision. In 2017, the Library of Congress preserved it in the National Film Registry, recognizing its cultural significance. What's remarkable about Wanda is how it refuses conventional storytelling while maintaining emotional truth. There are no explanatory monologues, no psychological insights, just a woman moving through hostile spaces where her value is constantly diminished. The coal region landscapes, with their industrial decay and bleak horizons, become a character themselves. Loden never directed another feature before her untimely death in 1980, but this single work has influenced generations of independent filmmakers. It's raw, unsentimental, and still radical. If you've ever wondered what a film made entirely outside the system looks like, this is it. Wanda isn't just forgotten. It was barely noticed in the first place, but its power remains undiminished. The Hospital, 1971. Before Network exploded onto screens with its mad-as-hell fury, Paddy Chayefsky won an Oscar for this brutal satire of the American healthcare system. George C. Scott stars as Dr. Herbert Bach, a broken-down doctor contemplating suicide while unraveling in a New York hospital where deaths go unreported and madness is the only constant. Arthur Hiller directs this medical nightmare with pitch-black wit, creating a world where incompetence kills patients daily and bureaucracy obscures responsibility. The film begins with a darkly comic voiceover detailing mysterious deaths among hospital staff, setting the tone for a story where healing institutions have become places of danger. Diana Rigg plays Barbara Drummond, the daughter of a patient and a potential salvation for Scott's character. But don't expect easy romance. Their relationship is complicated by her own agenda and his profound depression. Scott delivers a furious performance full of bitterness, brilliance, and barely contained despair, a role that rivals his work in Patton and Dr. Strangelove. His monologues about the decay of American medicine remain some of the most scathing indictments ever filmed. The supporting cast, including Barnard Hughes as a bumbling doctor and Richard Dysart as the hospital's administrator, creates a gallery of medical professionals who've lost sight of their purpose. The film didn't make major waves commercially, falling between Chayefsky's bigger hits, but critics recognized its brilliance immediately. Roger Ebert called it an emotional time bomb. Today it feels disturbingly prescient. Its criticisms of healthcare commodification, medical error, and administrative bloat have only grown more relevant. Modern films like The Big Short and Vice owe a debt to its fusion of comedy and institutional critique. The Hospital is that rare satire that hasn't softened with age. It's grown sharper. Watch it now, and you'll swear it was made yesterday, a testament to both Chayefsky's foresight and our failure to address the problems he identified 50 years ago. Images, 1972. Robert Altman's Images is a haunting descent into psychosis, blending psychological horror with experimental visuals that would influence generations of filmmakers. Coming between his more celebrated works, McCabe and Mrs. Miller and The Long Goodbye, this film represents Altman at his most European and challenging. Susanna York stars as Catherine, a children's author losing her grip during a remote retreat in Ireland, where she's plagued by visions of men from her past, some dead, some alive, all threatening. The film fractures reality with eerie precision. Mirrors, doubles, and shadows dominate every frame. Altman uses overlapping sound, disorienting camera work, and structural repetitions to place viewers inside Catherine's deteriorating mind. John Williams delivers one of his creepiest scores, collaborating with Japanese percussionist Stomu Yamashita to create unsettling soundscapes unlike anything in his later blockbuster work. York won Best Actress at Cannes for her fearless performance, which required her to interact with figments of her imagination throughout. Vilmos Zsigmond's cinematography captures the Irish countryside as both beautiful and menacing. Mist-shrouded mountains and desolate valleys become external manifestations of internal disorder. The supporting cast, including René Auberjonois and Hugh Millet, play men who may or may not be real, drifting in and out of scenes with destabilizing effect. Images is often ignored by Altman fans who prefer his ensemble pieces or genre deconstructions. It's easy to see why. It's unsettling, ambiguous, and refuses easy interpretations. United Artists barely promoted it, and audiences stayed away. But its influence can be seen in Roman Polanski's Repulsion, David Lynch's Mulholland Drive, and more recently films like Black Swan and The Babadook. For modern viewers, the film offers a masterclass in psychological horror that relies on atmosphere rather than jump scares. Its exploration of creative women pushed to mental breakdown feels particularly relevant in contemporary discussions about women's experiences in male-dominated spaces. If you appreciate cinema that crawls under your skin and stays there, this forgotten gem deserves rediscovery. Fat City, 1972. John Huston's quiet, bruising masterpiece, Fat City, follows two boxers, one aging, one rising, in the dusty margins of Stockton, California. Stacy Keach plays Billy Tully, a once promising fighter now drowning in alcohol and regret, while a young Jeff Bridges is Ernie Munger, a naive talent who might follow the same path. Their parallel stories create a meditation on masculine pride, unfulfilled potential, and the crushing weight of economic reality. This isn't a boxing movie in the traditional sense. You won't find triumphant victories or inspirational comebacks. It's a movie about losing, about living with disappointment. The boxing sequences, shot with documentary-style realism by the great Conrad Hall, emphasize pain, exhaustion, and desperation rather than glory. Susan Tyrrell's Oscar-nominated role as Oma, a broken-down barfly who briefly becomes Tully's companion, adds to the raw, unvarnished portrait of small-town defeat. Huston, directing at age 65 after decades of Hollywood success, brings unsentimental wisdom to Leonard Gardner's novel. The director's understanding of masculine fragility, explored throughout his career from The Treasure of the Sierra Madre to The Misfits, reaches its apex here. Every conversation in dingy bars, laundromats, and boxing gyms reveals men trying to maintain dignity while life delivers repeated blows. Shot entirely on location in Stockton, the film captures a fading California town where agricultural workers, drifters, and has-beens scrape by. The cinematography avoids romanticism, presenting sun-bleached streets and fluorescent-lit gyms with stark clarity. The film's title, slang for prosperity, hangs over the narrative with bitter irony. Fat City barely made a dent at the box office, caught between the fading studio system and the rise of New Hollywood. But its melancholy power and emotional truth have only grown stronger with time. Modern filmmakers from David O. Russell to Darren Aronofsky have acknowledged its influence on their own boxing narratives. For viewers seeking American cinema at its most honest, Fat City offers no easy answers, just unforgettable characters fighting battles they've already lost. Mikey and Nicky, 1976. Elaine May's Mikey and Nicky is a masterclass in male friendship gone sour, disguised as a gangster film. John Cassavetes and Peter Falk, real-life friends and frequent collaborators, play Nicky and Mikey, a paranoid low-level gangster and his childhood buddy who may or may not be setting him up for execution in one very long, very tense night. May, better known for her comedy work with Mike Nichols, brings documentary-like intensity to this study of masculinity in crisis. The film feels improvised, though it wasn't. May wrote a tight script, but encouraged her actors to inhabit their characters fully. The result is a level of psychological realism rarely seen in American cinema. Cassavetes' Nikki is a live wire of paranoia and self-destruction, while Falk's Mikey maintains a facade of concern that gradually reveals deeper calculations. The production became legendary for May's perfectionism. She shot hundreds of hours of footage, blowing the budget and angering Paramount Pictures. She reportedly hid reels of film to prevent the studio from taking control of the edit. The film was eventually buried with minimal promotion. But time has vindicated May's approach. It's now hailed as one of the best American character studies of the 1970s, mentioned alongside classics like Mean Streets and 5 Easy Pieces. What sets Mikey and Nikki apart is its unflinching portrayal of toxic male friendship, the shared history, the buried resentments, the unspoken competition. As the men wander through Philadelphia's nighttime landscape, bars, apartments, cemeteries, their conversation reveals layers of betrayal, both personal and professional. Ned Beatty appears as a matter-of-fact hitman, bringing additional tension to an already volatile situation. May's direction emphasizes claustrophobia and physical closeness, with the camera often uncomfortably near the actors' faces. The film feels messy, improvisational, and devastating, capturing loyalty, betrayal, and paranoia in a way few films ever have. Its influence can be seen in everything from Goodfellas to Uncut Gems, cementing May's reputation as one of American cinema's most underappreciated directors. The Hired Hand, 1971. Peter Fonda's directorial follow-up to Easy Rider confounded audiences expecting more counterculture rebellion. The Hired Hand is an elegiac Western more concerned with redemption and responsibility than gunfights. Fonda stars as Harry Collins, a drifting cowboy who returns home to the wife he abandoned years earlier, seeking forgiveness and a place to belong. Vilmos Zsigmond's cinematography is nothing short of revolutionary. Slow dissolves, amber light, and poetic stillness create a dreamlike quality that reimagines the American West as both tactile and mythic. The opening sequence, where flowing water transitions to galloping horses, remains one of the most beautiful montages in cinema history. Bruce Langhorne's spare, haunting score enhances the film's meditative quality, using folk instruments to create music that feels both period-authentic and timeless. Warren Oates delivers a scene-stealing performance as Arch, Harry's loyal companion who complicates the reunion with his presence. But it's Verna Bloom who provides the film's emotional center as Hannah, Harry's abandoned wife who has built a life without him. Their cautious reconciliation, where power shifts subtly between them, offers one of cinema's most nuanced portrayals of a broken marriage. Critics were split upon release, audiences didn't know what to make of it, and Universal Pictures yanked it from theaters after poor initial performance. Fonda's career as a director never recovered from this commercial failure, but a 2001 restoration by the UCLA Film Archive sparked new interest, and now it's considered one of the most beautiful, soulful westerns ever made, the kind of film that inspired pieces of Terrence Malick's Days of Heaven and Andrew Dominik's The Assassination of Jesse James. The Hired Hand represents American cinema at a crossroads, retaining the countercultural values of the 1960s while rediscovering traditional themes of home, duty, and sacrifice. Its reclamation from obscurity reminds us how easily masterpieces can slip between the cracks of film history, waiting for audiences ready to appreciate their quiet power. Two-Lane Blacktop, 1971. Monty Hellman's road movie, Two-Lane Blacktop, is minimalist, existential, and hypnotic, a film where dialogue is sparse, characters have no names, and the American landscape becomes a character itself. James Taylor and Dennis Wilson play near-silent drag racers known only as the driver and the mechanic, drifting through America's back highways in a primer gray '55 Chevy. Along the way, they pick up a hitchhiker and enter an unstructured race with a talkative Pontiac GTO driver heading east. Hellman, mentored by Roger Corman but influenced by European art cinema, strips away conventional storytelling to create something closer to visual poetry. The characters barely speak, particularly Taylor and Wilson, whose performances rely on presence rather than traditional acting. Oates provides counterpoint as GTO, a compulsive liar who tells a different life story to everyone he meets. The film becomes a meditation on American restlessness, masculine identity, and the allure of perpetual motion. Cinematographer Jack Dearson captures the highways, gas stations, and diners of the American Southwest with documentary precision. The drag racing sequences feel authentic and grimy, worlds away from Hollywood's glamorized portrayal of car culture. Hellman insisted on using actual locations and non-actors for supporting roles, creating a quasi-documentary feel that influenced later filmmakers, from Wim Wenders to Kelly Reichardt. It bombed on release, barely earning $1 million, and disappeared for years. Universal had promoted it as an action film, even naming it Movie of the Week in Esquire magazine, setting expectations the film deliberately subverted. But over time, it became a cult favorite, recognized for its unique vision and technical precision. The film's famous final shot, where the film appears to burn in the projector, creates one of cinema's most memorable endings. Now, it's celebrated as a road movie unlike any other, a film where the journey is everything and the destination doesn't matter. Its influence can be seen in everything from Paris, Texas to Drive, cementing Hellman's reputation as an artist in residence within American cinema. The Parallax View, 1974. Paranoia has never looked so chilling as in Alan J. Pakula's The Parallax View, the middle entry in what would become known as his Paranoia trilogy between Clute and All the President's Men. Warren Beatty stars as Joseph Frady, a reporter investigating the assassination of a political candidate and uncovering a shadowy corporation that recruits and trains political assassins. Released in the wake of Watergate and building on public suspicion following the Kennedy and King assassinations, the film tapped directly into America's post-60s anxiety. Pakula and cinematographer Gordon Willis, known as the Prince of Darkness for his shadowy work on The Godfather, create a visual language of institutional menace, dwarfing humans against massive architecture, using deep focus to suggest surveillance, and employing uncomfortably symmetrical compositions to evoke powerlessness against organized systems. The now famous parallax test montage, where the corporation assesses potential assassins through a barrage of emotionally manipulative images, is one of the most unsettling sequences in cinema history, a masterclass in psychological conditioning through visual association. The film's opening assassination sequence on the Space Needle and the final political convention scene remain textbook examples of building tension through architecture and editing. Audiences didn't flock to it. It was too cold, too scary, too real at a time when American confidence in institutions was already collapsing. Coming shortly after Beatty's McCabe and Mrs. Miller, and before his blockbuster Shampoo, it became something of a forgotten entry in his filmography. But its age-like prophecy, with its themes of corporate manipulation, of politics and media, feeling increasingly relevant. Modern political thrillers from The Manchurian Candidate remake to Michael Clayton still borrow its DNA. The Parallax View offers no comfort, no triumph of individual heroism against conspiracy. Its devastating final minutes suggest that individuals are ultimately powerless against systems designed to protect themselves at all costs, a message that feels increasingly prescient in our modern age of institutional mistrust. Sorcerer, 1977. William Friedkin's Sorcerer had the misfortune of opening just after Star Wars, and it tanked spectacularly, becoming one of the most notorious box office failures of the decade. But this tense, sweaty thriller about four desperate men hauling dynamite through a South American jungle is now considered a masterpiece of suspense cinema, a remake of Henri-Georges Clouzot's The Wages of Fear. It stars Roy Scheider as Jackie Scanlon, an American gangster hiding in a hellish South American village after a robbery gone wrong. When an oil well fire erupts 200 miles away, Scanlon and three other outcasts, a French businessman, a Middle Eastern terrorist, and a Mexican hitman, are hired to transport highly unstable nitroglycerin through treacherous terrain. Friedkin, coming off the massive success of The French Connection and The Exorcist, filmed in multiple international locations under brutal conditions. The production was plagued by illness, weather disasters, and budget overruns, challenges that mirror the character's journey and infuse every frame with authentic danger. The infamous bridge crossing sequence, where trucks must traverse a rotting wooden structure during a torrential downpour, took months to film and remains one of the most suspenseful scenes ever committed to celluloid. Pure cinematic terror, without special effects or digital enhancement. Tangerine Dream's electronic score pulses like a heartbeat beneath the action, creating a modernist soundscape that contrasts with the primal struggle on screen. Friedkin's direction, raw, gritty, unforgiving, shows a master working at the edge of his abilities, capturing physical ordeals with documentary-like intensity. The film's commercial failure ended the era when directors like Friedkin had carte blanche from studios, making it a symbolic last gasp of New Hollywood's artistic freedom. But time has vindicated Friedkin's vision. Contemporary directors from Christopher Nolan to Nicholas Winding Refn have cited its influence. A 2014 restoration brought renewed attention to this forgotten masterpiece, confirming its status as one of cinema's great white-knuckle experiences. Scarecrow, 1973. Al Pacino and Gene Hackman star in this quiet, character-driven story about two drifters chasing the American dream across the country. Director Jerry Schatzberg gives them space to breathe, argue, laugh, and fail, creating a buddy film that subverts every expectation of the genre. Pacino plays Lion, a childlike ex-sailor returning from sea to meet the son he's never seen, while Hackman's Max is a hothead ex-con planning to open a car wash in Pittsburgh. Their unlikely friendship forms the emotional core of the film, with both actors delivering performances of remarkable subtlety and depth. This was Pacino right after The Godfather, and Hackman fresh from The French Connection, both at the height of their powers and working intimately with Schatzberg to develop their characters. Vilmos Zsigmond's cinematography captures the American landscape with poetic realism. Freight yards, roadside diners, wheat fields, and prison yards become stopping points in a journey that's both physical and spiritual. The film's title comes from Max's philosophy that scarecrows don't fight the crows, but make them laugh, convincing them to leave, a metaphor for how these broken men attempt to navigate a hostile world. Scarecrow won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, but flopped in U.S. theaters. Critics didn't know what to make of its melancholy tone and loose narrative structure. It arrived at a moment when American audiences were gravitating toward more conventional storytelling, leaving this character study between genres and expectations. But for fans of actor-driven storytelling, Scarecrow is an overlooked treasure. It's soft, strange, and emotionally devastating. The film's legacy lives on in independent cinema's continued interest in male friendship, aimless journeys, and the dark underbelly of American mobility. Modern viewers often compare it favorably to acclaimed buddy films like Midnight Cowboy, recognizing how it pushed the boundaries of the form through psychological complexity and emotional honesty. The Effect of Gamma Rays on Man in the Moon Marigolds, 1972. Paul Newman directs his wife, Joanne Woodward, in this harrowing adaptation of Paul Zindel's Pulitzer Prize-winning play. The film represents a high point in serious family drama that Hollywood has largely abandoned in recent decades. Woodward plays Beatrice, a bitter, struggling single mother raising two daughters in a crumbling house that also serves as a home for an elderly boarder. Her performance is ferocious and heartbreaking, a woman whose dreams have curdled into resentment, inflicting emotional damage on her children, while occasionally revealing glimpses of the person she might have been. Nell Potts plays the sensitive younger daughter Matilda, whose science experiment with irradiated marigolds offers the film's central metaphor: how exposure to trauma creates both mutations and unexpected beauty. Newman's direction is understated, letting performances shine while maintaining theatrical intensity within cinematic language. The cramped household becomes a pressure cooker of thwarted ambitions and psychological wounds. Robbie Greenberg's cinematography emphasizes decay and isolation, using natural light to create a world that feels lived in rather than designed. The film received limited theatrical release from 20th Century Fox, but critics raved about Woodward's performance, which won her Best Actress at the Cannes Film Festival. Yet it was quickly forgotten in a decade dominated by more flamboyant filmmaking. The film was ahead of its time in portraying fractured family life with such brutal honesty, particularly from a female perspective. For modern viewers, the effect of gamma rays offers a bridge between Tennessee Williams' theatrical family tragedies and contemporary independent cinema's exploration of dysfunctional households. Its unflinching portrayal of maternal ambivalence was revolutionary for its time and remains uncomfortable today. The film deserves recognition alongside other classic family dramas like Ordinary People and Terms of Endearment, particularly for its refusal to offer easy reconciliation or sentimental resolution. Charlie Varick, 1973. Walter Matthau plays against type as Charlie Varick, a calculating bank robber who stumbles into stealing mob money from a small-town bank. Billed as the last of the independents, Varick is a crop duster and former stunt pilot whose meticulous planning is tested when he realizes the mafia is coming for their cash. Don Siegel directs with tight suspense and clever plotting, bringing the same no-nonsense approach that made Dirty Harry a hit. But unlike that film's moral simplicity, Charlie Varick operates in a world of shifting allegiances and pragmatic amorality. Matthau, known primarily for comedy, is revelatory as the cool, resourceful Varick, a performance that inspired modern anti-heroes from Breaking Bad to Better Call Saul. The supporting cast includes Joe Don Baker as Molly, a sadistic hitman tracking Varick with methodical brutality, and Andrew Robinson as Varick's increasingly unstable partner. Siegel stages several memorable set pieces, including an opening bank robbery that goes violently wrong, and a final showdown involving crop dusters and car bombs. Though ignored at the box office, filmmakers like the Coen brothers, Quentin Tarantino, and Michael Mann have praised it as a blueprint for intelligent heist storytelling. Its influence can be seen in everything from No Country for Old Men to Drive, particularly in its portrayal of professional criminals who approach theft as a business rather than a thrill. The film's cynical tone and immoral protagonist were out of step with early 70s audience expectations, but perfectly presaged the morally ambiguous protagonists who would dominate later crime films. Charlie Varick represents genre filmmaking at its most skillful and subversive, a crime thriller that doubles as a critique of American capitalism, where banks, organized crime, and small business operate by the same ruthless principles. The Ruling Class, 1972. Peter O'Toole gives one of the most insane and inspired performances of his career in this black comedy about Jack Gurney, a paranoid schizophrenic who inherits a seat in the British House of Lords. Director Peter Medak unleashes a savage satire of British class society that still feels shocking today. The premise is deliciously absurd. Jack thinks he's Jesus Christ, complete with private conversations with a crucified version of himself and a habit of breaking into song and dance. His aristocratic family plots to marry him off, produce an heir, and have him committed. But halfway through the film, Jack recovers, except now he believes he's Jack the Ripper. O'Toole modulates between messianic benevolence and chilling malevolence, creating a performance of astonishing technical range and emotional depth. The supporting cast, including Alistair Sim, Arthur Lowe, and Coral Brown, embody various aspects of British society, from scheming aristocrats to cynical doctors to working-class servants. The film moves between theatrical set pieces, musical numbers, and moments of startling psychological horror, creating a tone entirely its own. Based on Peter Barnes' stage play, the film retains theatrical elements while adding cinematic flourishes, dream sequences, surreal visions, and dynamic camera movements that match O'Toole's manic energy. At nearly 3 hours in its original cut, it's a challenging, exhausting, and exhilarating experience that refuses to let viewers settle into comfortable viewing patterns. The film bombed on release, cut by distributors and marketed poorly, but developed a passionate cult following over time. Its satirical targets, inherited privilege, religious hypocrisy, psychiatric manipulation, remain relevant in contemporary discussions about power and class. O'Toole received an Oscar nomination, but lost to Marlon Brando in The Godfather, relegating this towering performance to the footnotes of film history. For viewers who appreciate their satire savage and their performances larger than life, The Ruling Class remains a holy grail of counterculture cinema, a film where madness becomes the only sane response to an insane world. So, What did we just uncover? Not just movies, but moments, raw, brilliant, and often forgotten. These 15 classics from the 1970s still crackle with urgency, emotion, and power. And they deserve more than obscurity. They deserve rediscovery. Which of these films will you watch next? Or, better yet, which one do you think belongs on this list? Drop a comment, share your own favorites, and don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell. Here at Golden Age Classics, we're just getting started. More hidden treasures, more forgotten legends, and more reasons to fall in love with cinema all over again. Until next time, keep the reels spinning and the memories alive.